again, when we're trying to address these needs, again, like a lot of times, like I mentioned, they're trying to address a threat, which basically means whether we can survive or not. So with that introduction, I'm going to talk a little bit about a justice center that we created.
Wanted to recognize Senator Franklin joining us as a committee. Wanted to certainly open up the opportunity for Senator Franklin to make any comments. And with that,
I really don't want to interrupt. I want to listen, and I'll
thank you.
jump in at some point. But I'm sorry. I apologize for.
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Shay.
I'm grateful for your presence.
Grateful to be here.
Anyway, as I was stating, I'm going to talk a little bit about a justice center that we built, and how we were able to, I guess, get it funded. And it took some time, and I'll have to kind of talk a little bit about, I guess, the planning process. And your connection with probably with Harvard project on reservation economy study. I mean, we studied that quite a bit, and our Shoshone-Bannock tribe created a planning department in 2001, and we started working on a comprehensive plan. And it's kind of how, I guess, when we decided on building a justice center, the process we took, because we had a jail that was constructed in 1973, but it just outgrew our population, and we had to do something. Our justice system was in shatters, and we didn't, even though we had BI law enforcement contracts and BI assistance, we couldn't get any money to build a new facility, and it took us 12 years. And in that 12-year time period, we did several things where we did a planning process, and we had money from different settlements. We created investments, and we used those investments eventually to help fund the Justice Center. And it was the court system was part of that, and it was our court system was kind of scattered all over, and we had to consolidate that. The public safety was a real big concern. We asked for help from the Department of Justice, the Interior, State of Idaho. And Idaho was a partial public law 280 state. And we found out that prevented us from getting any federal funding, because the federal folks that we requested funding from said, well, you're an appeal 280 state. Idaho's got to help you take care of your criminal justice system, and that just wasn't happening. So we were kind of at a dead end there. So we were forced to take the initiative to build it no matter what. So we used that $4 million that we had, like I stated earlier, from different resources. One of those was from a water settlement that we had hammered out with the state of Idaho. It was called the Snake River Water Adjudication, and it was a negotiation process, and we were awarded a $20 million settlement, but the part of the money went into our water department, our water code, and I guess developing a department and hiring staff to manage our water. So, but we did some investing, and part of that was we invested money to improve our justice system, but it took like from 1999 to 2005 before we finally was able to use that money. That $4 million that we invested, but that was only part of the seed money. We got some help from the USDA, a little bit from DOG, DOJ and HUD, and that was mainly for planning. But the bulk of the money that we got, and this was in 2008, is we had to take out a $15 million loan, and that was from the Native American Bank. That's when we bought our way in. We bought a seat on the Native American Bank. But we were able to construct the facility, and we also got $3.5 million from the Obama Recovery Act, the ARP, and $5 million from our own development fund that we created. So that was a process that we used, and we now have a $25 million facility, and it's state-of-the-art. The only sad thing about it is, even though you build a facility like that, your people don't behave any better. But you know, at least we got a fancy facility. But it makes us look good, and you know, our court system is in a state-of-the-art facility, and it really helps improve the justice, the court system. And then, but like I said, we had to kind of create our own path for financing. And we do have 638 contracts with the BIA for law enforcement as well as corrections. So we're able to staff the facility, and we're still working on improving the court system, which is, I guess, a necessity in today's age because of, you know, the new laws that are coming out, Tribal Law and Order Act, and Indian child welfare, and even for, I guess, for business development. Another project that we're undertaking right now is a wellness center complex. You know, one of the things that and it's we're probably no different than the rest of the Indian country, but we suffer from a high rate of diabetes. And part of it, who knows why? There's probably many reasons why we do that, but we're trying to address it. And again, this is coming from my planning background, is my people want a hospital. And I guess my argument is, well, that's not going to make you be any better. That's not going to make you healthy. So the wellness complex, wellness center would probably make you healthy, and wouldn't have no need for a hospital if we do that. So that's the thinking behind that. One of the other, I guess, revenues that we're kind of looking at for this particular project is, we're looking at the new market tax credit, and also for our housing needs, we're looking at the low-income housing tax credits program. So them are the ways that we're hoping to address our needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Appreciate your comments. I wanted to take a moment to recognize Representative Torres from the Subcommittee on Indian, Insular, and Alaska Native Affairs has joined the meeting. Open it up for any comments from her.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Senator, for calling us together to talk about very important issues here, and that is infrastructure around Indian country. This conversation is especially timely given that the administration has set a goal of investing $1 trillion in infrastructure. Those of us here know very well that public-private partnerships alone won't work for Indian country and rural communities. The federal government is going to need to make serious financial commitment that matches the unique needs of those living in communities that have been consistently left behind, neglected. Unfortunately, because Congress has too often failed to live up to its obligations to Indian country, investment in tribal infrastructure has not remotely kept up with the local needs. Over the years, this lack of investment has drastically and disproportionately affected the health and quality of life for Native people. The Indian Health Service faces substantial backlogs in the construction of healthcare facilities and with the maintenance of existing facilities. The average age of IHS hospitals is now 40 years, almost four times older than the average U.S. hospital. And at the existing replacement rate, the new 2016 facility would not be replaced for 400 years. And not to mention code upgrades in areas such as California, where we have major earthquakes and changing weather patterns require that we reinforce our building codes. What's worse is that over 500,000 people in Native communities across the United States do not even have access to reliable water sources, clean drinking water, or basic sanitation. Again, lack of investment by the federal government has resulted in a backlog of approximately $2.8 billion in much-needed sanitation facilities, construction projects, and a majority of BIA-run schools are in substandard condition. Estimates to replace or repair these facilities have exceeded $1.3 billion. Native Americans also live in some of the worst housing conditions in the country. According to the National American Indian Housing Council, over 30% of Native families live in overcrowded housing, a rate 6 times the national average. 40% of on-reservation housing is considered substandard, and over 70% of housing in tribal communities is in need of repairs. So I'm really looking forward as to hearing more on how we can continue to work together to ensure that federal funding is put behind the needs, and a real needs assessment in Indian country is looked at from a perspective of bringing the life quality, to current standard in Indian country. Thank you again, Senator Franklin, for inviting me here.
May I thank you, Congresswoman Torres. May I just make a couple? I didn't want to interrupt Chairman Shay, and so I'd just like to make a couple of informal comments. Is that all right? Can I do that now? Okay, good. Thank you. Chairman Shay mentioned that Harvard Kennedy School study, and the first, I announced to the Senate on February 14, 2007, and I think it was 2 days later, I was at Fond du Lac, up near Duluth, and Karen Diver, the then chair, said to me, why are you here now? Usually politicians come about a month before the election. And I said, I want to learn about Indian country because we have 11 tribes in Minnesota, and I don't know anything. And she told me about sovereignty and recommended that study. And so after talking to her, spending an hour and a half or so with her, and some of the other tribal members, I called her 2 days later. I got the study online and read it, and she was extremely surprised. And so one of the things I learned right away from Karen Diver is that Indians don't expect much from us, from politicians. Because if you did, you'd be disappointed all the time. And so I apologize for that, because it's wrong, and it's historic, and there's a historic legacy of that. And this is, and the legacy of that, I just respond to Chairman Shay. Okay? You talked about housing. The Congresswoman talked about housing. When you don't have enough housing, families end up in overcrowded, living with other families in overcrowded spaces. And kids are witness to problems that, on top of the cultural trauma, of the original cultural trauma, because of that, we have high incidence of drug addiction. We have other pathologies, domestic violence, and this is traumatizing the kids on top of the cultural historic trauma. And so there is a cycle here we can break. We can break it. But it needs the resources to invest in housing, to invest in wellness. I was at Gila River a couple years ago, 3-4 years, 5 years ago. I think its resort had the #1 golf course in the Starwood system. They showed me this beautiful hospital they had. They pointed outside the hospital to show me 2 buildings where people get the treatment for diabetes. You know what I'm talking about. What was dialysis? So this is a tribe that has this great resort where it's a 5-star resort. They have a 5-star restaurant in the resort, so you know they have good fruits and vegetables there. But they were living, but the people in tribe were living in a food desert. There's a million things we need to do, but they're all related. It's all circular. And I am very concerned every day. I am seeing a nightmare coming out of this administration in terms of funding levels for things. So I am. But one of the things I just want to do, and I feel helpless in certain ways. I've been trying to get just a loan guarantee program. We did an Indian loan guarantee, energy loan guarantee program in 2005. It's never been funded. And I just want to get. There's so much renewable energy on Indian land that I just want to do a loan guarantee so we can leverage economic development. Because when you get economic development, you're able to do things. And we need people working. And we need good schools so you attract good doctors. A doctor's spouse is not going to want to go to a reservation if they don't have good housing, if they don't have good schools. Everything's related to everything else. And this is something I try to say almost, I just give a version of the speech a lot in the committee. And I tried to get this done, this loan guarantee program. I got it on the energy bill that passed, but it didn't get through last. So we're going to try it again. But I remember a colleague on the committee, I wanted to get his signature on a letter for this loan guarantee program. It would have cost $11 million to leverage $90 million or so in economic activity. And he said, well, if you get an offset for it. And he had just voted for the dock fix, which was like $140 billion unoffset. And this was after a hearing on suicide. I apologize. I also apologize for getting early because I was in a hearing on Russia and how they try to undermine democracies.
Well, I want to offer a sincere thank you from my tribe anyway for your efforts. Thank you.